Start recording. Alright, so, very briefly, just gonna get into what we're talking about today. Ooh, it's lagging. Is it good? Okay, I think it's good. So, over the next week or two, this is gonna be basically the whole focus of the summer. It's how to carry as an individual in your team. That is pretty laggy, but oh well. As long as they can hear me. How to carry as an individual on your team. Because yes, it is a team game, but there are a lot of things that you can do as an individual to output more that'll sway the balance of like who is going to be winning the game, right? So one of the big things I want to start out by discussing and talking about as a concept is the idea of taking duels, which is especially like 1v1s, 1v2s, like how to take fights with the opponents, taking advantage of your dynamics as a character. And the micro of like how to mechanically win duels with against other players. It's like we do spend a lot of time talking about macro concepts, but like as Tracer, like how to use your movement so that you properly dodge abilities is one of those like fundamental things that will just win you games, right? Like we'll take a really obvious big example, okay? So say you're playing Tracer, and the enemy team is playing Ana, right? The thing about Ana, she's got basically three things you have to worry about. One is getting hit by the nade. This is probably the biggest and most obvious example that I will like start out with. So like, say I'm taking this duel with this Ana, right? I do half her HP. And at some point, an Ana is going to use nade at her feet to give herself HP, right? Now, something you have to worry about as Tracer is, say you get her low, right? And then you're like, oh, I'm going to blink in to try and get the one clip, right? But if the Ana is somewhat decent, right? We'll flip it around for a second. If the Ana's halfway decent, say she gets like half her HP force, if this Tracer's blinking into my face in order to like finish the kill, if I react with even that, right, she's just dead, potentially. And on top of that, so like the nade itself does damage and heals the Ana. So as Tracer, like, you have to expect the nade to come out on the Ana, because she's not just going to let herself die, right? Unless it's like, unless you just really catch her by that much of a surprise, which is that you shouldn't count on it, because at the very least an Ana player is going to be able to do this, right? She's going to be able to look at her feet and hit the E button. Pretty simple. So as the Tracer, you want to create enough like spacing, but when you like blink up to the Ana, where she can't just nade both you and herself. Like, you don't want this situation, right? And so that kind of knows, that kind of takes knowing, like, what's the nade range? Like, what's that distance? How far should I play? If she nades me, can I make sure that she doesn't nade herself as well? Like, if you're, like, really curious about, like, the nitty-gritty of individual interactions like this, you could say, alright, I'm going to pick Ana, I'm just going to, like, throw a nade here. Okay, that hit both of us. Did you expect that to hit both of you? Right? It's like, that's the sort of understanding you kind of need to get the edge of that framework, right? And that's just one ability interaction, right? In that matchup. The second obvious cooldown is obviously sleep, which is a lot harder for the Ana to hit on the Tracer. But there's a couple things that like make sleep extremely easy for an Ana to hit. And like when we're talking about these duels, like you should be thinking about it from both perspectives. Like obviously, like as the Ana player or as the Tracer, right? Say I'm the Tracer in this situation. I notice that the Ana used sleep. The Ana used nade, which means it's a lot safer for me to get close to her, right? Because that's the whole interaction we just talked about. You have to worry about that. But once she uses nade, like you can go in, right? Say I use 1, 2, 3. Oops. Okay, well that's not a good example. I'm lagging. Sorry. Say I triple blink like into her face. We'll just say 1, 2, 3 like this. I have no blinks other than recall, which means if an Ana keeps track of the fact that I use all those sleeps, right? then a good Ana will be able to place that sleep, knowing that you have no blinks, knowing that you can't react, to sleep you, right? And so the only thing you could do as the Tracer player to outplay that is to recall. So from the Ana's perspective, she throws out the sleep, especially a better Ana will like be able to like track your movement and hit the sleep, right? Depending on where you space. But a good Ana will like track that you used all those blinks and go for the sleep. And so she either gets the sleep on you, which basically guarantees your death, or she forces recall, which is usually a good trade more or less either way, right? And keep in mind that like once you know these fundamentals of how these interactions work, it will keep getting more in depth and detailed, because like say you notice that the enemy Ana like was tracking your triple blink usage and like punishing you for it, which I'm not saying you should triple blink, but just say for the sake of argument you were. Maybe as the Tracer, if you were going to mix her up, you could be like 1, 2, 3, and then you use the third blink to actually blink to cover, or hold on, like you triple blink like right, say here, she sees you, but then you react by like walking around the corner to her sleep, so she like sleeps the wall, right? Those sorts of like micro outplays are how you're really going to get like an insane amount of value against worse players, because at that point you can bait out sleep for nothing against a worse player, or at the very least you just make her guess and react, right? So those interactions happen across like basically the entire game, but the good news is that once you understand the interaction with like what does one character do, like Ana has the sleep, she wants to use that when you're in general, she can track your movement, right? So like that knowledge can transfer over. Like if I'm playing Venture, right? If I'm like using my dash like this in front of the Ana, suddenly it's very hard for me to react to like the sleep, because I have nothing, right? And like even this animation, I can get slept during that animation, right? So the Ana can just go for that sleep like without thinking. So that's the sort of thing as the Venture, like you have to be able to kind of react when you're taking that duel. So like as the Venture, maybe instead of like going for a full on engage against the Ana, maybe what I do is like I drill dash to this corner, and then like I start jiggle peeking like this to get shots off, which that just pushed her off. So yeah, just start thinking about the game in that way, and there's so much depth with this topic alone, like how to take duels. Like it involves map geometry, it involves the situation, it involves who's next to the Ana, right? Who's with you, so on and so forth. But if you can start getting better interactions and getting more value in this way, it's gonna really sway. Now we're gonna be over the summer like talking about these interactions a lot and how to get the most out of the character you're playing. But if as like a very short, as like one really easy way to practice together, doing these 1v1 matchups. Doom, are you online actually? Maybe I can set it up real quick.
Yes, I am.
So TXCXX is a 1v1 code. It doesn't have every character or every interaction, but it is one way to practice a lot of the more even matchups especially. Now I'm going to be like lagging because I'm streaming and I'm like showing the wait, am I streaming the game to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not on my Xbox. I'm over here eating.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I'm gonna...
Would you like me to get on my Xbox?
No, it's fine. I'll just keep streaming. It makes it easier. I'm gonna be lagging, so I'm not gonna be able to execute as well. So we'll take it slow here. So this matchup, for example, is Zenyatta versus Tracer. So what is the threat that Tracer has to worry about? It's pretty simple, really.
The charge up from Zen?
That's one thing. Yeah. Literally just the Discord as well, but like the left click in general. Like just getting shot is like the biggest threat for Tracer. So if I get discorded, obviously like one of the big things I can do is just LOS, right? Like that. And so say I'm like going in, he throws the Discord on me, and then I immediately blink to cover to get it away, and then I can blink back and start doing something like this, right? if the Zen is charging the 5 orb, if you can just kind of play that animation so we can see it. You can hear it and you can see it. And the moment that it gets released, there's that entire animation time that he is unable to do anything. This is what's called an opening. This is an opportunity where I'm gonna try to do the 5 orb and miss, so I can kind of display. Look at this. I can even go slightly before the animation plays because it's hard for him to predict where I'm gonna come from, and so I'm gonna get even more time to like potentially put a clip into him. So do it again one more time, and we'll just play it all the way through. And then that's your opportunity. So looking for small opportunities like that to like outplay your opponent, especially with mobility, is like one of the reasons why high mobility characters are so good in the first place. It's because you have the opportunity to outplay, like, try to hit a soldier rocket on me, right? Suddenly your entire cooldown has no value because I use mobility, right? So that's just kind of the in general concept there. Like I said, especially on Fridays when we do our rank days, we're going to be thinking about this a lot. And I'm going to be setting up these 1v1 lobbies so that we can start getting like some more like fundamental foundational knowledge on like how to take these duels. And for a side note, one of the reasons I picked Tracer as like my default example here is because Tracer is known as one of the best duelists in the entire game, which means she can pick when to take engagements, and when she has a favorable engagement, she can basically always follow through on that, which is why she's so good. And especially like, we'll just say for the sake of argument, say, hey, I get a huge clip on you. Okay, I'm like lagging to shit. The moment I get the kill, I hit recall, and I'm no longer in danger, right? More or less. It takes some finesse to like make sure you don't use up all your resources and get chased down, but that's the general concept that makes Tracer so good. Other than that, any questions about taking duels so far from the audience?
Nope.
Any matchups you want to like examine specifically?
None I could particularly think of at the moment.
Oh, actually, okay. I guess I'll talk about some other concepts here. Let me go back to the practice range real quick. So I talked a little bit about like the Ana versus Tracer matchup and like things to worry about as like the Tracer and the Ana. A big concept in this game is cooldown usage, right? As I've kind of alluded to. So like, if I'm an Ana, right, and I'm just sitting on high ground, I'm just kind of bored. I'm just like, you know what? I want to use my abilities. You're slept, and I use my nade. At the bottom right, you see I have no resources at this point. Which means, like, imagine you're just an Ana and you're just kind of bored in the backline. You throw those two combos out, those two abilities out, and then me as a Genji, I'm, like, looking at you high ground. I'm like, that Ana just used literally everything. Let me take this duel right now with deflect and dash and, like, all my HP, right? And so finding out where those opportunities for you to, like, take those duels and punish people for using abilities is what's going to separate you, and it's really good. It's going to help you get like finish out kills and get kills that you like did not expect, that people do not expect you to get, right? So like another example would be Kiriko. This is like one of the largest, most obvious examples. Kiriko teleports in Suzu's. She has nothing for like a couple seconds other than like a wall climb and maybe the help from her team to survive for the next couple seconds. So if you notice that Kiriko does that, your opportunity to kill her is like now. Like you really have to like step on the gas and try and like punish her. So that's just a concept to think about. And then on the receiving end, if you're the character who like uses your cooldowns, right? You have to realize like once you use Suzu and once you use teleport, you use the Kiriko, you're very you're isolated and you should be playing a lot more scared now. Especially if the enemy team has, like, mobility or range to, like, kind of punish you from a distance, right? So, you know, as the character, like, when you're using your cooldowns like this, maybe you want to be sparing, maybe you want to use only one, maybe maybe when you're using your second ability, you're like, say all the enemies are over here, I'm teleporting away, not in, right? And so if they want to chase you, you're shooting them the whole time. You're like, oh no, this is still favorable for me, right? And by the time they finally get on top of me, I'm just gonna be like, oh, now I'm teleported over here. So like I'll actually make another example using Ana, since she's like one of the keystone characters. As Ana, like maybe you use nade, but you definitely want to save sleep, especially if there's like a specific credible threat right now. Like if the enemy team has Winston Tracer, you really want to save those cooldowns unless you know you're gonna win the fight off using them, because the moment you use sleep, like a good tank player is just gonna instantly like push into you for that like mistake. And so you really want to save that sleep so that you can like stop him from jumping on you. But that being said, if there is no Winston, there is no like dive threat, and the enemy team has like Hanzo, Widow, like Sigma, it's like, okay, well, their threats are not going to be as up close, which means if I want to just like say that's like a Widow over there, maybe she's like trying to snipe my team. If I just like throw out like a sleep like that, what's the threat? You know, like maybe their tank can like walk up a little bit, but I can go for that knowing that like there's no immediate threat that's gonna like punish me for that. Just things to think about. And so that's gonna like increase your ability like uptime as well. Just things like that. Yeah, so those basic concepts we'll be spending a lot of time thinking about. The game is ultimately like comes down to how do you trade resources effectively until eventually one person on the enemy team gets a kill. It's basically how the game works, and learning how these interactions work on the smaller level is going to help a lot. Like an example of like a positive trade would be like, say I'm Cassidy and I'm like fighting a Baptiste. Say we're just kind of taking a duel. I hit him a couple times. I throw a nade, right? And him is the Baptiste. He's like, oh, I'm low HP. Let me throw this immortality for myself. If you're the Cass, right, you should kind of expect that he has that big cooldown when you're taking that duel with him. So like, say you're taking this fight, you're shooting him, you throw these abilities out. He uses immortality, and you're like, oh, he can use that to save himself. Now I'm gonna roll away. Because guess what? The immortality cooldown is like 23 seconds, which means if you don't think you can kill him after he uses immortality, running away is a completely valid option. Because guess what? You come back to this fight, even if he has full HP, you have your nade again, you have your roll again. Now you can take this fight aggressively and just like push into him with nothing, right? So that's like the fundamental concept there as well. So like taking cycles of aggression as well is like another thing that Tracer's really good at. Like you do this, say if off this alone you force immortality, it's like, okay, you're not going to kill him in that moment, but like you can run away, wait for immortality to break, and then once it's broken you just like go back in. So yeah, those are some fundamentals for taking duels. I was keeping it nice and light this time. Yeah, I'll take any questions again if anyone has it, but this is a concept we'll be working on and thinking a lot about over the next few weeks. Any questions or comments?
So if your team is getting dove, and say you're like Reaper, what duels would you want to take, or would you even want to take? Would you just want to disengage?
So the thing about Reaper is that most characters, especially ones with mobility, like especially when they're doing dives, like the mobility is kind of their whole thing, right? Reaper doesn't get the choice on like which duels to take. He can only make the choice of where to stand, so that when the interaction of the dive happens in the first place, he can get as much value as possible. So like as the Reaper there in that situation, like I actually think about that one time you were playing Reaper on Gibraltar, and you were like, what do I do? Where do I stand? And I think I even told you, I was like, play with your Ana. Why do you think that worked?
Our Ana was getting dove every single time, and just having protection of the Ana kept us in the fight.
Yeah, so like you have very short range influence, right? So if you're gonna influence any location, it should be the most fragile part of your comp, which is right next to your Ana. Like, Reaper's not ideal in that situation, but if you are going to use him, that's the best way to do it, right? And it ended up working pretty well because, like, say your Ana's, like, right here with you, and the Winston jumps, like, right here. You've managed to get in the way of them two, which means you're going to have Ana heals, like, right close to you. It's going to be super easy to heal you. And you can take this trade, which is favorable for you, right? Yeah, so kind of, like, figuring out as Reaper where the important space to stand is really important, because that's it. You only get a couple moments to, like, enforce that space in order to, like, protect the valuable targets on your team, right? Because if you're, because the situation could be completely different. Say you're standing here and the Ana's standing right here, and you're like, ooh, what's coming over? Where's the enemies? Where are they? But then what you don't realize is that the Winston dove here, and the Genji, like, walked up from here, and they just, like, completely executed your Ana, like, in 2 seconds, and you're like, I did nothing. You know? So you just have to be careful to, like, be in the way, so to speak. Which is, the difficulty that Reaper has doing that is why he's, like, such a niche pick. But, not saying it's impossible at the same time.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Any other interactions you guys are curious about? Here, I'll look at the... And I will say, if you're playing a character and you're playing against a different character and you're like, holy crap, I cannot break past this character. Like, every time the enemy team has this character, I get shut down. That's a good way to think, like, that's a good path forward to start thinking about the matchup specifically, and putting time and effort into thinking about that matchup so you can be more prepared the next time it comes around. Because frustration like arises in games like this when you don't know what to do. So the solution in that case would just be to figure out how to take the interaction better. So, like, for example, a lot of plat players are like, ooh, Reaper counters Winston, right? But if I'm the Winston and I see a Reaper's right here, let me just take a slightly different approach. You know? Like, it really is that simple sometimes. And then, like, the Reaper sees you, like, jump over here, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna play Plants vs. Zombies, like, and I'm gonna walk towards this Winston. Like, say you're the Reaper, right? And you see the Winston jump up there, you're like, okay, let me walk this way. But me as the Winston, I know he's gonna play one-dimensionally and walk towards me, because that's his whole thing. So I'm gonna keep rotating. I'm gonna keep out-rotating. I'm gonna get my jump cooldown back, and then by the time he's chased me all the way over here, I'm gonna be jumping on top of his Ana, and now he's still over there. And that's as mobility characters, like, cycling your cooldowns like that, cycling your mobility to try to chain into each other and to kind of out-rotate the slower characters is kind of how you do it, right? Because if the enemy team just lets you set up for free, like, even if the Reaper doesn't chase you here, you still get to set up and, like, go look for even more, like, interesting engage angle, because maybe now you jump the Ana from here, and you still, like, out-rotate them using your bubble and using your mobility, right? So, lots to think about. Lots of variability. I think we'll probably leave it at there. Nice 30-minute video. Keep it nice and concise. But yeah, thanks for coming. And Wednesday we should be doing something. I'll keep you guys updated.